Oh, well, it just doesn't keep any getting better for the Brexiteers, because today the National Union of Farmers has warned that the UK could run out of food a year from now with a no-deal Brexit. So Britain would run out of food on this day next year if it cannot continue to easily import food from the EU and elsewhere after Brexit. The National Union of Farmers have warned. So this was published on the 7th of August. Just so you know. So, no deal Brexit by the 7th of August next year. We'll run out of food. Minette Batters, the NUF president, has urged the government to put a food security at the top of the political agenda after the prospect of a no-deal Brexit was talked up this week. The UK farming sector has the potential to be one of the most impacted sectors from a bad Brexit. A frictionless free trade deal with the EU and access to the reliable and competent workforce for farm businesses is critical to the future of the sector, she said. So Batter's warnings comes from a fortnight after the Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab said that Britain would have adequate food supplies after Brexit. Oh dear, Mr. Raab. So while Downing Street has insisted it is confident that an agreement can be made in time, the International Trade Secretary Liam Fox warned that over the weekend that the prospect of a no-deal Brexit was now at 60-40, fueling fears at the National Farmers Union and among food importers. Food security Britain is in a long-term decline, with the country producing at the moment 60% of what it needs to feed itself, compared with 74% 30 years ago, according to the figures from the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, or DEFRA. So, in a statement issued by the NUF, Bates expressed concern that Britain would not be able to meet its food needs if Brexit was mismanaged. Research showed that the 7th of August 2019 would be the nominal date that Britain would run out of food if it were asked to be wholly self-sufficient and based on seasonal growth, the NUF said. Oh, and by the way, currently a lot of these farmers are saying we don't have the workforce to pick the food that's currently available in our fields, and you've had drought conditions throughout the summer which has led to bad harvests. So, doesn't get any better. So the temperature of the past few weeks have put Britain's food production capabilities into sharp focus and underlined concerns. Bates said that the consequences of there being no agreement could be mitigated if the government took immediate action and gave domestic production its unwavering support. But they're not going to do that. Okay, the only help these farmers actually get is from the EU. And even though, to begin with, the Farmers Union went to the government and said, so, yeah, we're going to get subsidies, right? And the government went, we don't know. Basically. So, where are we? So yes, so changing eating habits over the past 3 decades have helped fuel the increased reliance on food growing overseas, with perishable items such as tomatoes, lettuce and citrus fruits expected to be available all year round. But global economics has also contributed to imbalances in food that can be produced in the UK. According to figures from the Agriculture and Horticultural Development Board, the UK is a net exporter of meat, but relies heavily on imports such as bacon from Denmark, which exports 90% of its pork. DEFRA statistics show that the next most valuable food category after fresh fruit and vegetables, with 57% of the UK requirements produced in Britain, are followed by pork at 61%, then potatoes, which are 25%, which are imported. Britain exports more milk and cream products than it produces, and it imports almost 3 times as much as cheese as it exports, almost twice as many eggs, and almost 20 times as many fresh vegetables, according to the HMRC statistics for 2017. Among the few surplus products are whisky and salmon. The NUF said that figures show that Britain that Britain is an opportunity for British food producers to readdress the balance. The statistics show that a concerning long-term decline of the UK's self-sufficiency in food is that there are lots of potential for this to be reversed, Bright has said. And we recognise the need for importing food, which can only be produced in different climates. If we maximise on food that we can produce in the UK as well, then that will deliver a whole host of economic, social and environmental benefits to the country. So, basically, what Baiters is saying is, can we remain in the single market so that we can have free movement of people, so we can have access to farm workers, and so that we can still be able to sell our produce? That is literally what she's saying in this. Look, I've said this time and time again. You look at the article we went over from the Prospectus magazine over the thought experiment, where it was purely, hey, look, if this was another country and not Britain leaving, we'd be acting the same way that the other EU countries are. We're not going to get a free trade agreement because you can't cherry pick. And the EU has been pretty much very clear on that since day one. And you've had also reports, especially when David Davis was going to negotiate, you had negotiators from not only the EU, but from the UK, who were part of his attaché, basically saying, I'm so embarrassed because he doesn't know how the EU works or operates. So, as a no-deal Brexit comes together, I say good, because the more and more people are realising just how much we actually need to be in Europe and actually have a say on what goes on in these institutions. Because being on the outside basically means you get no say, and being treated as a third country, which we would be being treated, doesn't suit the UK at all. It puts us in massive, massive problems. We have to talk back to services. And remember, our economy, 80% of it is made up of the service industry. If you do not get access to the single market, which is, again, the only trade agreement which guarantees access to things like services, because that's how comprehensive it has been and become over the years, something which Britain advocated for and was the key advocates to get that changed, this damages our economy beyond measure. No other country will do the level of deal we have on services with the EU compared to anyone else. And if not, they will gouge out massive chunks of our own economy in any trade deal. On James O'Brien's show, you had a guy who summed it up perfectly. In the EU, there are no sharks because everyone works together for the betterment of Europe. But once you go to the WTO terms, which, by the way, has its own problems, and we'll be getting into that. I think next. I can't remember which one I just filmed now, but that has its own terms, because he said that, look, there are sharks in the WTO that will eat you alive. And hey, remember, Brexiteers, the WTO. Who votes for the people in charge of the WTO? Just saying that because, you went on about so much about sovereignty and stuff like that, and yet here you have people in the WTO who are going to say, hey, you can't use these quotas which you want to go forward with on the WTO terms because every single country has to agree to your trading terms, and every single country that has so far responded has basically said no. So we continue along on this disaster train, and it's just remember, guys, you're the ones that voted for this, not us.